Hi, Steve Lackmeyer here with another edition of OKC Central. Today we are visiting with two individuals who are very involved in the effort to improve Classen Boulevard between Sheridan Avenue and Northwest 23rd. First of all, let me welcome Shane Hampton. He is a fellow with the Institute for Quality Communities at the University of Oklahoma. And we also have Jonathan Dodson, who is coordinating citizen advocacy efforts for this effort called A Better Classen. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Steve.
Jonathan, this kind of started with you strolling along Classen Boulevard one day. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, you wouldn't call it strolling. Usually it's a dead sprint across the 6 lanes in the median, and we raced across and made it. And as we made it, we ended up in an unnamed parking lot right across the street from our house. And we were promptly chastised by the security guard who said we were on private property and we needed to leave quickly. And so it was that incident with my wife and 4 kids that we realized we should probably try to do something to fix both access east-west across Classen and north-south. So
that was on a Saturday when there was really no cars in that parking lot.
There were definitely no cars in the parking lot. So.
Talk about the conditions, either of you, along Classen as they exist right now.
Well, I think whenever we started involving more people who live in the neighborhood and who use Classen every day, or who walk or bike across Classen every day, we found that a lot of people were having the same experience as John and his family, that it was difficult and felt unsafe and uncomfortable to cross the street or to be on the street. And
you had your first meeting, I believe, in January.
Yes.
Talk about the turnout for that, and also talk about Councilwoman Meg Salyer's involvement.
She's been a huge fan of this from the very beginning. I met with her originally just to see if she would help and assist, and she called this a top priority for her, and really helped get behind it, including helping the city help fund part of the project along with ULI. And so I kind of went into this thinking, man, if we could get 50 people who care about Classen to show up, we're going to have made a difference. And I think our first event had over 150 to 175 people show up to really hear kind of the history of Classen and what we were trying to do. And then there was a charrette process that was involved with that as well.
So today the A Better Classen met and talk about some of the ideas that are being discussed as we move forward.
So really what we wanted to focus on first was crossing Classen. So we're just sharing ideas for how to make the key crossings. We're hearing 18th Street is a place where a lot of people cross between neighborhoods and destinations like Classen School of Advanced Studies or the Plaza District, and back to the other side to a place like Mesta Park. And there were just small interventions that could be made with small investments that could help make those crossings safer.
Talk about the idea for doing temporary little islands and curb cutouts and better markings along that street.
Yeah, there's also some places along Classen. A lot of people felt that Classen Boulevard, its place in Oklahoma City, is sort of an iconic, beautiful street, and yet what actually is on the ground, especially in the downtown area, has sort of fallen into disrepair a little bit. There's wide concrete asphalt stretches, and there are some opportunities there where some space could be reallocated to do some temporary public art beautification projects that would help make that a more pleasant experience to drive, walk, bike in that corridor.
Jonathan, you're involved in several urban core developments. You're also keeping track and are familiar with what's going on in that area. What kind of growth are we about to see in that Classen corridor between Sheridan Avenue and Northwest 23rd?
Well, I think when you're thinking about it from a development standpoint, there is development that occur despite return in a given time period. So it's just maybe it's a benevolent developer who really likes an area and they're not worried about cash flow or anything. They're going to go do it. But for people like myself, there needs to be some sort of return to make the numbers work. And so what we found is that Classen and west side of downtown is very attractive because one, you can find value properties, but there's also so much upside. There's so much going on. You look at 21C, you look at the incredible development that the Hall family and Andy Burnett and Mark Befford are doing right there, and Zach Martin. So to have that on the west side really opens up some opportunity. And then you think south, and you think of what's going to happen with Wheeler and Farmers Market, which is your favorite place. I think that is definitely a place that if we can figure out how to really make the boulevard fit in with Farmers Market, which I think we're going to do, I think that the Farmers Market's going to take off. And so there's just a lot of activity that a lot of people haven't seen, but I think over the next 24 months it's going to explode with development. So
Classen's ripe for some
absolutely.
changes to fit in with what's coming.
Absolutely.
Shane, talk about some of the street features that appear to be from another era, like
Sure.
2 left turn lanes, the width and all that. Talk about how this was designed for a different time.
Yeah, well, Classen has always evolved, and its function has always been transportation. Being constructed as the streetcar corridor, it's the reason a lot of the neighborhoods to the northwest of downtown were constructed. So evolved from the streetcar corridor into a freeway corridor as it was branded in the 1950s whenever it was rebuilt. At that time, Broadway Extension, I-40, none of these highways existed. And so that was really the critical automobile corridor into downtown. So today we see some leftover lane capacity, turn lanes that maybe aren't as utilized today. I think further traffic study would be needed to confirm that, but the kinds of traffic counts you see on Classen have certainly evolved, and the street's function has really evolved over time.
What is the traffic count now along the stretch?
There's some areas of this stretch south of 23rd that are as low as 10,000 vehicles per day, which would be somewhat similar to like Western Avenue in the sort of historic Western area. But then a little bit further north, close to 23rd, it goes up to about 25,000 vehicles per day. So it's a big variety of traffic counts.
You're also looking at some variables in the future too, aren't you, in terms of public transit and in terms of the boulevard connection?
Sure, yeah, Classen will become a direct access route to I-40 once the new boulevard is constructed. So it will sort of merge with Western Avenue, do a little curving maneuver to connect to Western and to the I-40 access at Western. So could be some changes in traffic volume to Classen in the next 5 or 10 years. And then Classen's also been continuously identified because of its history, I think, as an ideal corridor for public transit in the future as well. So those are some variables that sort of are weighing into long-term ideas about Classen that still need to be explored.
Talk about long-term options ahead.
Again, I think that there's a lot of stuff that still hasn't quite worked out. There's a lot of things still in play for Classen. So this, we really intended it to be a conversation starter to provide some things that we can do right now and work with the city and advocate on to improve the day-to-day experience of Classen, at least temporarily, and then sort of start a conversation about what people want to see in the future. But since we only looked at south of 23rd area on this particular study, Classen really needs to be considered as a whole. So this hopefully is the beginning of a continuous dialogue with neighbors in the city about how Classen should be in the future.
Classen has this great, the fact that it's over 100 feet wide, it provides the context to do a lot of different things. And so when we talk about, even when we talk about our low cost of living in Oklahoma City, a lot of times what we don't think about is that we are a car-dependent community, and an average car for a family, usually it costs about $8,000 a year. And so if you tack $8,000 on to the cost of living, it starts to change the dynamic, especially for a family. Maybe it's a single parent family, or it's someone like that who maybe only makes $30,000, $35,000 a year. And so to pay an extra $8,000 a year just to be able to get around really changes that variable of low cost of living. And so what we've hoped is that we can find a way to make a street that is already in place to have the width and capacity to do, whether it's bus rapid transit, to do potentially, there's talk of streetcar, bike lanes, those things can all fit there, but we've got to find a street that we can start so that these families who are struggling to get from spot to spot actually have a place that they can move north and south and east and west.
Classen's a good experimental
Yes.
opportunity.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it will just, as it has evolved in the past, it will continue to evolve as a transportation corridor, and I think the next trend in transportation is towards multimodal
Yes.
options. So that would be a street that offers multiple ways to get around.
All right. Thank you very much for joining me. To follow more coverage of downtown, Classen, and the urban core, you can read my stories in the Oklahoman, on News OK, and on my blog at OKC Central. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.